Welcome to The Explainer. We all love free stuff, right? Free social media, free search, free email. But what's the real price we're paying when there's no price tag? Today, we're digging into the sources to understand the hidden economy behind these services we use every single day. So, let's start with a feeling I'm sure many of us have had. You've probably heard someone say this, maybe you've even thought it yourself. It can feel pretty convenient, maybe even a little magical, when an ad pops up for the exact thing you were just thinking about.
But is that all there is to it? Is it just about convenience? Well, the sources we're examining today argue that this is just the tip of the iceberg. They claim there's this whole other hidden marketplace humming along beneath the surface, one that's trading in something far more valuable than just our attention.
Harvard professor Shoshana Zuboff actually gives this a name. She calls it surveillance capitalism. And that first word, surveillance, is really the key. She argues the entire operation is designed to fly under the radar, to be undetectable. It's all wrapped up in this positive language about empowerment and connection, while behind the curtain, something else is going on entirely. Okay, so what is the raw material for this new economy? If it's not just the photos we post or the messages we send, what's really being collected? This is where the sources draw a really important line. On one side, you have the data we consciously share. You know, our profile info, our photos, our posts. But then there's this whole other category. This is the data that's extracted from our behavior. Things like how fast you type, the way you hesitate before you click a link, even the emotional tone of your voice. And that brings us to a core concept from Zuboff's work, behavioral surplus. A good way to think of it is like the digital exhaust from our online lives. It's all the extra data that isn't strictly necessary to make the service work better for us. And this surplus, well, it's basically a gold mine because it's packed with these incredibly rich predictive signals. And the sheer depth of this data is kind of staggering. This surplus includes everything from the way you correct a typo, to which color buttons you tend to click on, to how fast you're driving. It even includes the unconscious signals from the muscle movements in your face when you post a family photo. All of it is considered raw material. Okay, so they have all this raw material. How in the world does that get turned into an actual product that somebody would want to buy? Let's trace the path from data to dollars. According to the sources, it's a four-step supply chain. First, that behavioral surplus is extracted, almost like mining for a natural resource. Second, it's all fed into what they call computational factories, these massive AIs that just analyze it for patterns. Third, those patterns are used to manufacture prediction products. And finally, these products which predict what we'll do, think, and feel are sold off to the highest bidder. And this right here is the absolute key point to understand. In this model, we are not the customers, we're the source of the raw material. The real customers are the businesses who are paying to buy predictions about what we will do next. And the scope of what these products claim to predict is pretty startling. It's not just about what kind of shoes you might buy. We're talking about incredibly personal things, like personality traits, your emotional state, even your political leanings. And this is often based on data that we never consciously decided to share. But according to Zuboff, the process doesn't just stop at prediction. I mean, that's valuable, but what's even more profitable? The next step is to actually guarantee a specific behavior. For a powerful real-world example of this, the sources point to, believe it or not, Pokémon Go. Yeah, remember that? It seemed like a totally harmless, fun little game, but Zuboff argues it was also a massive experiment in what she calls economies of action. So here's how it worked. While we were all out there playing the game, chasing Pokémon, there was this whole other shadow game going on. Businesses could actually pay for lure modules to get players to come to their specific locations. The game mechanics were then used to subtly herd people's physical bodies to these paying businesses. The product being sold wasn't just an ad, it was guaranteed real-world foot traffic. And we're not talking about a small thing here. The scale was immense. The source notes that in the Netherlands alone, 1.3 million people were part of this experiment. Their real-world movements being engineered for commercial profit, all while they were just trying to catch a Pikachu. This same logic of influencing real-world outcomes goes beyond just our physical movements. The sources also cite Facebook's massive contagion experiments. What they found was that they could use subliminal cues online to actually change people's real-world emotions, making them happier or sadder, all while completely bypassing user awareness. Okay, now let's look at how this whole logic is evolving with the rise of AI. A second source we looked into argues that our online activity isn't just about predicting our behavior anymore. Now it's about us providing free labor to train the very technology that might one day replace us.
Think about it for a second. If you want to build a robot that can navigate a messy home or an AI that can truly understand human emotion, it needs to learn from unfiltered reality. Scripted Hollywood movies are pretty much useless for that, but our daily vlogs showing real arguments, real kitchens, real life, that is the perfect training data.
This source frames this whole situation as the unpaid employee trap. In the past, a company would have had to hire and pay employees to collect this kind of data. But now, they've created a system where millions of us do it for free, all competing for this lottery ticket called monetization. And the reality of that lottery is pretty stark. You see this so-called creator economy, where an absolutely tiny fraction of people get paid, but the platform benefits from 100% of the valuable training data that's provided by everybody. From this viewpoint, we aren't just users. We are essentially an unpaid digital workforce. So when you put all of this together, it points to a fundamental conflict, right? There's this massive gap between the public face of these companies and what the sources describe as their hidden economic engine. Zuboff puts it, well, pretty bluntly. She says the entire business model depends on us, the users, not understanding the true nature of what's happening. Our ignorance is a necessary part of their operations.
And you can see this contradiction on full display. Publicly, the message we get is all about privacy and user control. Yet, as the source notes, in a court case, Facebook's own lawyers argued that once a user shares information on their platform, they have no expectation of privacy. Two completely different realities. Ultimately, the sources leave us with a pretty heavy question. If our unfiltered, private lives are now the raw material for this new kind of economy, what does that mean for our future? By digitizing what they call the source code of humanity, we're handing over the power to predict, modify, and automate human experience. So the final question isn't just about privacy. It's about who gets to write the code for our future.